Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope your day is going beautiful. I hope that you found a way to solve that problem that's been bothering you. I hope the sun is shining down. I hope that you realize you're so much more than a race from the hospital to the graveyard. Your life is about to get so amazing. I know it. Trust me. I don't care if you're having a bad day right now. It's about to get awesome. True Life Podcast. And I have for you today something incredible. I would love to introduce to not only those that are watching, but those that may be listening. I would like to introduce Charles Ponti, a visionary, multidisciplinary creative with a profound impact on the realms of software, design, product management, and content creation. With a distinguished career characterized by a relentless commitment to innovation, Charles has left an indelible mark in multiple industries, including finance, healthcare, content creation, and social networking. By crafting products that resonate with millions of individuals worldwide. Beyond his remarkable work in product development, he is a thought leader and a commentator in the ever-evolving digital and media landscape. He shares his insights through compelling writings, guiding us through the intricacies of our tech-centric world. His passion for meaningful conversations extends into the realm of podcasting, where he hosts engaging discussions on a wide array of topics. Furthermore, Charles' creative spirit transcends boundaries as he curates mood-enhancing playlists that speak to the heart of the soul. In addition to his digital pursuits, Charles Ponti is a dynamic artist producing contemporary works that challenge conventions and provoke thought. His multifaceted contributions are a testament to his dedication to pushing boundaries, inspiring creativity, and fostering positive change in our interconnected world. Charles, thanks for being here today, my friend. How are you?
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm doing great. Happy to be here. I'm here in London, away from home, traveling,
All right.
creating, working with new teams.
Amazing. So before we start digging into some of these intricacies, maybe you can give us a little bit of a background. Like what got you to be where you are, man? Like, who inspired you? Were you the guy that grew up and you were drawing on the wall and your mom was like, hey man, don't be drawing on the wall? Like, what was it, man? Like, what got you to be where you are today?
Yeah, I think like as a kid, man, what was I like as a kid? I was a terror. I was an absolute terror. Yeah, it's unsurprising. Most people who see me and talk to me for like 5 minutes can surmise that I was probably the unruly kid, youngest child, grown up to a single mom who didn't have like the time to kind of deal with my antics. But yeah, I think I was just always it was a stark contrast because like my sister's like it kind of makes sense. She's the older child, had to look after me. She's a very like classic Leo, plays by the rules, very button up. And I'm like a classic Aries, like rules. I want to know the rules so that I can deliberately break them as soon as I hear them. Like when I hear rules, it's like a checklist of things for me to do to break.
Love it.
Yeah, just always doing something new. I think that was from the beginning. I have like I'm super interested with everything and then immediately bored once I've gotten very good at it and like, okay, on to the next thing. What can I learn? What can I do? What can I put out there? Yeah, just keep moving. I think there was a movie called Meet the Robinsons, animated movie. I think it was Pixar or DreamWorks, one of those. And the quote, the whole like quote, the like moral of the story was keep moving forward. And I think that's kind of always been my thing. Keep moving forward, do it creatively, do it happily. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to get a little bit of background, and I think it helps build out the framework for the individual with whom we're kind of investigating today. And yeah, when I think of moving forward, I think of Dory. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. You know what I mean? Like, it's such good advice.
Exactly. What's great about Dory is that she has this like there's a whole conspiracy theory about Dory where like she's forgetful, 5-second memory or whatever it is. But there's a whole conspiracy theory that Dory actually doesn't have short-term memory. She actually remembers everything. but she just doesn't want to worry about the past. She's so like, I'm going to be super focused on the future and be super positive, and over focusing on the past forces you to like stay stuck and become negative and pessimistic. So that's like the whole conspiracy theory around Dory, and I feel like it makes sense. I feel like it makes sense to some degree. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like resonating on the past kind of keeps you stuck sometimes, or no?
First off, I've never heard that conspiracy theory, but now that you say
All right,
it,
there you go. Now you
yeah, I
know.
love it, man. I can't wait to dig into it a little more. But I agree. And in some ways, if I pull back the framework a little bit, I think that the world speaks to us through us, whether you're watching a movie or whether you're talking to the person that may be the thought leader that put that little piece out there for people to do.
Right.
I see us moving into a world where obviously depression is being trapped in the past, anxiety is being trapped in the future. And if you look at the way in which the world is emerging, we're really trying to focus on the now because that's all there really is. And I think that we're coming to this idea. And I love bringing it up through Dory and Pixar and all the artwork moving forward. Like, yeah, you only have right now. That's it. And it's gone. It's gone. Where's it at? It's gone. Now, that's it. And if you can think like that, you think beyond good and evil. You think beyond time. You think like, okay, this is the moment. This is life. This is living. But it's a mindset, right? And it's kind of hard to stay in the moment. Is it? Have you found that, or what are some tricks you use to stay in the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to stay in the moment. I think like because I think you need some form of like looking at I think it's like methodical, right? Like you have to like what I tried to do is what can I do right now? What's an action that I can take right now? And thoughts of the past or the future are tools, right? Like what is memory? Why do we have memory? Like why do we have the ability to construct concepts, predictions for the future? I think it's just tools. They're tools for you to use in the present, right? Like a hammer is only useful to you if you're using it right now to hit a nail. I think that's kind of the thing. Like I look at the past to kind of think about, okay, what lessons have I learned in the past? And how can I use that to what I want to do right now in this moment? And looking to the future, I try not to do it very much at all. I think my only desire to look into the future is just as a way of figuring out what direction I'm trying to head in. Where it's like, if I'm on like a cutting regime, if I'm trying to like, lose weight for something, then it's like, okay, I'll use that as a tool to, choose the salad over the, bowl of ice cream. But otherwise, I don't really see what benefit thinking about the future holds. I just don't like. I'm sure other people like have reasons why the looking into the future is very useful for them, but for me personally, I just don't find much use in it.
It's a fascinating concept to think of. When you look at the way in which people have been conditioned their whole life, a lot of people use like a journal to write down these goals, or they write down these. If you read like Steve Jobs' biography, or it seems to me a lot of the boomers' biographies, which it makes sense because those people writing biographies because they're at that age. But in some ways, you can see the tools that they've used. And if we look at thought patterns like tools, be it the past or the future, maybe what we're seeing is that some of these tools are obsolete, and looking to the future and creating these goals of like, you sure you want to limit yourself like that? What do you mean I'm limiting myself with a goal? You know what I mean? Like, but in some ways, like that could be there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like goals, even goals, like it's so tricky. Like I think about it as like directions.
Okay.
I think to some degree, like to give an example, like right now, I'm building a product collab, to help bring collaborators together. But I could have a goal of like, okay, I want the product to get to 1 million users, right? That could be a goal, but like the goal is, what is the value of it? Is the specificity of 1 million users, is that a valuable goal? I don't really think so. I think it's more like, because if you focus on the goal, like one thing I've found, especially with like building content or like building products is like, if you focus too much on the goal, you will kind of do whatever it takes to hit that goal. But if you don't ascribe meaning, if you don't focus on the meaning behind the goal, then you're unlikely to hit it or hit it in a good way. You know, does that make sense? Like, you'll cut corners, you'll screw people over. You see this with a lot of products. You know, people complain about a lot of social networks because they focus too much on a goal, on a very specific goal, and they'll do whatever it takes to hit that goal. But it's like, if you focus on that, like, why? Like, for me, it's like, I want to help as many people as possible. Will that be 1 million people in 12 months? Maybe, maybe not. Like, maybe it'll be less people, but I'll maximize on the true intent, which is to help as many people as possible. If that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I think numbers and goals like that, especially when we start looking at revenue or users or comment, you know, a lot of these metrics that we use for success are actually symptoms of the process. Like, yeah, those are great things, but those are because of it's meaningful. Like, the meaning is something that creates those other things. Like, those are byproducts of a successful organism. And I look at it as an organism because you're feeding off of each other, and it's symbiotic instead of parasitic. You know, parasitic, yeah, you can become parasitic and extract like we extract oil out of the ground, or you can be symbiotic, like a person on psychedelic mushrooms having a different kind of look at the world. Like, there's a symbiotic relationship happening, and it's different than a parasitic relationship. So I love that, man. And I'm so stoked to talk to you because I think you are one of the people that are helping us move the ball forward and creating a future that is more symbiotic. When there's someone in a position of authority creating, they are the people that are paving the pathway for that kind of relationship. Is that, maybe you can speak to that a little bit more? Like, we've kind of fleshed out a little bit, but what does it mean to be building something like that? What are some metrics you focus on? What is your process like? How do you create something that's symbiotic?
I think it's a lot about creating a community, you know, like, I was kind of talking about it, you know, last week with someone. I was like, you know, when I first entered the world of the creator economy, I had a lot of thoughts in my mind about what that looked like what the creator economy looked like, what participants in the creator economy look like influencers and YouTubers and, you know, live streamers, and like, what are these people? What are their motivations? I had ideas in my head of kind of what that was. And they weren't great ideas. You know, I think it's largely driven by popular culture or like, you know, what is discussed in like the media. You know, if you Google the word influencer, the top articles are all going to be kind of negative, you know, and I think a lot of people kind of see it that way. And I think it's because the stories that are highlighted are parasocial. They're parasitic. They're kind of this, you have this one person who is like an idol, you know, the golden calf.
Yes.
And that's the type of relationship that they've garnered with their community, you know, whether intentionally or unintentionally, just based on like whatever metric they were chasing. You know, if you're chasing views, you're more likely to end up with this parasocial relationship because you're basically extracting value from your users, you know, from your viewers, from your community as the kind of creator. So that was my thinking kind of before I got into it. And then once I started working in this industry, I was like, yes, those people absolutely exist. You know, I'm not going to lie and say it's not true. There are a lot of people, a lot of the big names that you hear, they are big because that is the kind of community that they've built around themselves. But then I learned about loads of other people like yourself who are not trying to do that. They're trying to foster a completely different type of community. It's not one way where I am here creating content kind of just to kind of garner views. I'm trying to create a community. I'm trying to create a space. And when you do that, you don't get as much press, because it isn't as salacious. You're not going to be
Right.
drawn to making the type of content that gets you, written on, this person did this crazy, horrible thing or whatever. But you end up with a community kind of love, and I saw the power of that. And I saw the power, especially when creators like that collaborate with each other, because there are so many people. I think it's one of the most undervalued part of the creator economy is that people create these communities that are adjacent to each other, and they could deliver so much value to their community if they work together, as opposed to trying to compete with each other. I think there's so much more power
Yeah.
in collaboration and people working together, as opposed to people seeing each other as competitors. Like, oh, this person
Yep.
has this many, this person has a community. Well, I'm going to figure out how to steal their community. Why? There's like enough room, I think, for
Yeah.
everyone. I don't think it's really necessary. So that was kind of the inspiration, behind the product that I'm building now. And it works. Early signs, people are excited. They kind of see the value proposition. There are a lot of hurdles, I think, to get over still, but I think there's a lot of power. I think there's loads of power in collaboration, and you see it
Yeah.
yourself, with the type of show that you do and all of the people that you talk to. I mean, it's refreshing and it's empowering, both to yourself and to your audience, and to that person and to their audience as well.
Yeah. I love collab. I love StreamYard. I use it all the time, and I've met some really cool people. I've worked with other podcasters that I've never would have met in my life, you yourself included. And I think it's on some level, collaboration is beginning to eclipse competition, just very subtly at first. Like, you can just see the moon just starting to move in front of the sun a little bit. We have this old machinery of competition, and it's like a lot of the legacy influences, they're still part of the legacy media, and the legacy media try to do this thing like, we got a brand new machine. It's pink instead of blue now. Well, that's not really a new machine. You know what I mean? That still kind of does the same stuff, man. But
Yeah.
we're seeing people move. Like, there's this new term like build online, and it's products like the ones that you're building that allow people to build online. Like, you can build an audience, you can build a community, you can build a framework to build a whole new structure. When you build a new foundation, you can build a new building. You don't need to keep up 2 walls to get permits and all that kind of stuff. You can really begin to build something new, and we're seeing it happen. We're seeing people that used to be truck drivers, myself included. Hey, I can move into this space and I can create value for people. I can bring together someone who may be studying at Maastricht University and put them in contact with a historian in Canada. And I get to feel like not necessarily a large check or a piece of what comes together, but I get to be cited in the work that they do when they publish a paper. And that lasts forever. Now I can use that as, hey, here's George, someone who was cited in this study. Here's a best-selling author. And it's like, it's all because I got to build with people. And it's so much more rewarding. And I really see what you guys are doing here as not only building out products, but building out a future framework for people to solve problems. And that's what we need right now more than anything. Have you noticed that this is something that moves not only in the United States, but obviously you're in London. Is this something that is burgeoning throughout the world?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's some cultures that are kind of more into it than others.
Yeah,
That
totally.
are kind of more open to collaboration and helping each other out than others. But that it was another thing, kind of going back to what I was saying before about like kind of what I thought. And it's, we're all very limited, I think, to some degree with the types of content that we consume. And that's to be expected. I never really liked the term kind of like filter bubble, whether it's in reference to like the content you consume or your interests or whatever. It's like, oh, these things. You're stuck in a filter bubble. I think people have interests, and people should be allowed their interests, and people should pursue their interests, and people should be within the communities that, wrap around their interests. But there is so much more, and you don't really see that until you enter a new space. As I was saying, like, from growing up, because I like to keep it moving, because I like to try new things and enter new industries. It forces me to see what other people are working on, what other countries are doing, what other cultures are doing. So when I first started in the creator space, I was very kind of Western focused. Like, okay, the US, maybe, the UK. When I first started, I was living in London at the time. So, there's so much creativity here. Like, I'm in Shoreditch right now, and I mean, you can't, like, you trip over creators of some degree, whether it's, like online creators or artists, painters, musicians. I got a haircut yesterday, and I was talking to him, my barber, and I was like, how did you get into being a barber? And he was like, oh, when I first started, I was, in high school, I was doing graphic design. And then I decided I wanted to do landscaping. So I, like, flew to Australia and started to do landscaping. And then I didn't want to do that anymore. So I, like, moved to the Netherlands and learned how to cut hair. And now he's a music producer. And so, like, but that's everyone, I feel like, in many neighborhoods of London. So it is global. It's totally global. Everyone's collaborating. I think it's becoming more and more as you see more industries, sadly, to some degrees, many industries kind of dry up, whether it's like automation, AI, globalization, whatever the case is. But the online space is infinite. There is no end to the online space. It just keeps going. As soon as one space gets crowded, there's another space kind of that's open to you. And the only reason you wouldn't see it as open, I think that's one thing that I think your content does for a lot of people, is see the possibilities. You may think the doors are closing or closed for you, but no, they're open.
Yeah.
That door's closed. There's like 500 doors right over here that are completely open. You just got to, like, turn around, look at them, and walk through them. So I think hopefully our product kind of does that for people. You meet new people, you learn new things, and you put yourself out there.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I'm a huge fan of music and language. And there's a famous quote, I think it's from Bob, who says, when one door is closed, many more are open. Like, all you have to do is look. But we're so tunnel vision sometimes. Like, I got to do this one thing. I got to go to college. I got to get this degree, and I got to take this class, and then maybe I'll get this job, and then my mom will love me, and I'll get this girl. Like, I have this kid. Like, it's so linear. Like, that's not the way the world has to be. I understand that can be welcoming. That might feel as if it's rewarding. But if you just take some time to sit quietly and try to figure out who you are and what you're doing, and ask some deep questions, I think that you'll see the world unfold in front of you in ways you can't quite yet imagine. And let me ask you this, the product you're building, maybe you could speak to that a little bit. Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? Is it both of those things? Is it a manifestation of imagination? Like, what is this thing you're building?
It's a verb. It's absolutely a verb. I don't want it to be, there are a lot of platforms that are nouns, that are absolutely nouns, and they want to be nouns because they want to keep they want to keep you there, right?
Yeah.
Like Facebook, it's a book. It's a noun. They want you to look at the book. Don't take your eyes off the book. Like YouTube. And these are all things that I love, by the way.
Sure.
I'm disparaging them in a
I'll help you.
in a joking way. But, like, these are things that you look at.
Yeah.
And I love those things because that's how I learn. I meet a lot of people through Facebook still. People make fun of it, but I think Facebook to me is one of the kind of friendliest platform, especially because of how many Facebook groups there are. I think, you take the word groups, Facebook is a noun. If you just treat it as the Facebook and the feed, it's a noun. You just look at it. But then you look at Facebook groups, that's a verb, a grouping of people coming together. And for us, we're a verb. We don't want people to, we're not trying to, kind of what you were getting at earlier about like kind of what we're kind of aiming for.
Yeah.
We of all of our metrics, of all of our North Star metrics, things that we're aiming for, none of them are kind of like how much time people spend on the product, right? We don't want people coming every single day, spending all their time, spending an hour on there. It's a verb. We want to help you take action, right? You come here, you meet people in the community, and you work together. It's all about like finding the right people to make beautiful things with and put that out into the world. So we want to be a tool. We want to be a tool for people to help you do things.
I love it. I'm not sure people spend enough time on language. If you're going to build something, a name is important. Like, what does it do? And because what it does is going to, on some level, translate to the person partaking in it. If it is a Facebook, what does it mean? If I say it's a book, I'm going to read it. I'm going to spend some time looking at it and checking it out. But I'm not really, I could use it to smash something, or I could use it as a sunblock. There's ways I can use it, but it's limited. And so too is the actual platform. And it's built right into the language. When we start talking about what we're going to do, we should be very cautious and energetic and excited, but very precise in the language we use, because we're describing what we are. We're describing what we're going to do. We're giving ourselves limitations by using language that is limiting. And I wish more people would be conscious of that in their daily discussions. And in a weird sort of way, we can see language changing. Like people are talking about different pronouns and this and stuff. It's fascinating. It's beautiful. And it changes the way we model reality. And what you guys are doing, collabing, like here we have this not only verb, but we have a unique ID in which we can experience the world. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that. That's powerful, man. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many ways for people to work together. I think that's like, there's so much power in people working together. And you see that, with what you're saying, with people changing language.
Yep.
Like language itself is a tool, like you use it as a tool to kind of communicate with yourself, to kind of ruminate on your ideas, work through your ideas. But what is the primary function of language? Is to communicate with other people, to get your point across to another person. If there was only ever one human being on earth and no other human beings had ever come about, would that one person had ever developed a whole system of language and multiple ways of saying different things and, nicknames and, all the different pronouns for, a tree and a dog and everything else? I don't think so. So there's a community. What I say is like, there's a community aspect to language, and the way you kind of form language and you challenge language. And if you want to change language, you have to do it with other people, and you have to do it like this.
Yeah.
By talking and working through things. That's one of my favorite things about content where it's people speaking, where it's two people or a group of people and they're all talking, is that you could, watch it or listen to it and just kind of see it as like them kind of communicating with each other or trying to communicate something to the person that's not part of the conversation and is just kind of consuming it. But if you kind of take a step back and you kind of really look at the language that they're using and the tones of their voices throughout the conversation, what you realize is that they're using language to work through things with each other. There's a negotiation and exchange. And a really great piece of content, whether it's a podcast episode or a live stream or a YouTube video, whatever the case is, where there's multiple people, is like, you have all these different forms of language, people saying the same thing or different things in different or the same ways. And at the end of it, you have, 10 different sentences that now gets distilled down into one sentence that kind of captures every single idea. And it's something that didn't exist before. So there's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in that.
Spoken like a true artist. It's this tapestry we're weaving. You know what I mean? Like it speaks volumes of, I can see why you are I can see why you're leading the charge in so many ways. Like you need someone who understands that in order to have a tapestry woven in a way in which the image can be in the middle and the colors are right and the fabric is good. And there's a lot there, but it takes thoroughly understanding not just words, which are a fragment of language, but the cadence in which one person decides to talk to another, the hands, the eyebrow flash, all of that is imperative in finding meaning in something. And it's wonderful to me. If we continue down this wonderful path of linguistics and symbolism and where does imagery fit into this? Like on some level, I think we're almost beginning to see imagery introduced into the human language in a way in which it's never been done before. It's almost like language, our words are nouns, but now we have this phenomenal imagery, which can be an adverb. And now we can really begin to understand each other. If I can show you this image, back it up with a prose of poetry and use my hands, wow, maybe I even do a little dance about it. You know what I mean? But we really begin to communicate in a way that is meaningful that we haven't done for so long. What about all these new integrations we have?
Yeah, I mean, imagery is interesting, especially in the creator space. Yeah, I think what you're saying, you mentioned earlier about like kind of media as it has existed. I think when you have any type of tool and you have it in the hands of a limited set of people, they tend to kind of form a standard.
Exactly.
If you put 3 people in a room and you give them something, they tend to find one way of doing it, one way that kind of benefits all 3 of them, right? Exactly. And I'm using like number 3 kind of for a reason. If you look at any type of media landscape, it's kind of always like 3 kind of in that space. But then once you get into the creator economy, where I can't stop, no one can stop someone from opening a TikTok account or opening a YouTube account and making something, recording something, dropping it into Premiere Pro or some other piece of software, booting up StreamYard and creating something there. Like no one can stop you. And because of that, we have way more forms of imagery of communicating things in a visual manner, I think, than ever before. And there's a lot of pushback, I think, from people who see things a certain way. Like I live in Los Angeles, home of the Hollywood studio. And they have a certain idea about the way things should look, and the way a story should be told. And I, as a rule breaker, I just fundamentally disagree.
I'm with you.
Fundamentally disagree with that. And, if we take like an example, the kind of birth of the short form video and what people have done. You look at a TikTok video from 2020 and you look at TikTok videos now, they're very different. They may seem the same, but they're very different. The innovations of the way that people are trying to, it's like, well, how can I communicate my idea a little better? It's like, okay, well, let's shift the camera angle down. Let's speed up the frame rate ever so slightly. When you talk to these creators, I think a lot of people, they don't give credit to how much thought is put into every 10th of a second of these creations. And it's for a purpose. They have an idea, they have a message, they have something they want to do. They want to make you laugh, they want to make you cry, they want to make you feel something, they want to, help explain a cause to you, show you what something is like on the opposite side of the world, which is very important now. So I think imagery is extremely important, and the more we can get these tools to be very powerful, I think number one, to be very, very powerful, to be very accessible, to anyone on any platform, whether you're using it on, an expensive MacBook, or you're using it on a budget Android phone in another country, that doesn't have great internet. You should have the power to make any image you want. I think that's extremely, extremely important.
I love all of it. I think it speaks to the idea of when information can flow freely, innovation moves at a pace that hasn't been seen since in my lifetime. The innovation that's happening, like when I start looking at people, myself included, that try to create, content specifically for a phone screen. Like all of a sudden you can have 4 different pictures, and you can have some interesting pictures and like a different design, and like, like if you were to be like, why is it the 3 pictures like that? I don't get it. It's kind of cool looking, but the only reason you have that is because I'm trying to create specifically for this one type of phone. And sometimes I look back at other people's stuff and I'm like, that is so freaking cool, man. I love the way they did. How did they even think about that? Oh, that gives me an idea. And it's like, when we don't restrict ideas, when we don't restrict a certain type of person, be it a gender, a color, a class, when we don't restrict people from creating, innovation creates a wealth that has been unseen in humanity since probably the Luddites on some level. But it's you know what I mean? It's like true artisans, like the most creative people in the world now have an outlet where they can compete with somebody that maybe went to the London School of Economics or something like that. And they can compete on a level where it's like, I'm not sure which one I like better. And that's where power comes from. That's where innovation comes from. And these tools are allowing that to happen, not only in Los Angeles or London, but throughout the world on a level. Are there people that come to you and say, hey, Charles, this is dangerous, man. You shouldn't be doing this. This is only for a certain set of people that understand programming and have an understanding of how to control people. Do people try to set you back like that?
Yeah, I think I have met quite a number of people. Like I said, like being in being in Los Angeles, there are a lot of people who would like things to stay a certain way. They don't like the idea of everyone having a camera and everyone having the ability to record their own story and to put their own story on there, and for that story to get, 1 million views or whatever it is. They don't like that. I don't put it against anyone. I think I always try to think about everyone like everyone has the same goal. Everyone wants the same set of goals, I think. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to be accepted. Everyone wants to get their story heard and understood. And everyone wants security to some degree, resource security, community security. And when things change, when information gets out there and industries change, it's frightening, because you're used to things a certain way. When I started, if you wanted to create content, like when I was in college, not that long ago, like 15, 12, almost 20 years ago, I guess, like when I was in college, if you wanted to create content, well, it's like, okay, well, I need to like study film, study writing, and then hopefully, get good enough to like write a screenplay, enter the lottery that is Hollywood, and someone will care about me, and maybe I can get my show aired at 6 p.m. on Thursday night on Fox, one of the 10 channels, that people watch. And now you could be 12 years old and have a story to tell, and you pick up your phone and you record it and you put it out there, and within 24 hours, 1 million or more people have seen it. So a lot of people don't like that. They're very afraid, and I think that's fine. I think their story deserves empathy as well. I never try to think about it as like a competition, and I always try to explain that to people. It isn't a competition. There's a balance. People want the one thing that the creator economy allows is a personal relationship that you cannot get from very polished high-end work that you get in a movie theater. You're never going to feel like someone's talking directly to you, or you're hearing really about someone's life story. Even if it's like a documentary or something, it's dramatized. There's a lot of, cooks in the kitchen making that. So it's a very kind of polished view of the world. So it's understandable. So yeah, long story short, yes, there are a lot of people that don't want these types of things to exist. But I understand, and they'll come around at some point.
Yeah, that makes me think. I just finished a parent-teacher conference with my daughter, who's 9 years old, and we sat down and we spoke just about the way in which social media is influencing the classroom. And we were going to we had the option of meeting on Zoom, but we wanted to get down there. And the teacher was like, "Oh, I'm so thankful you guys came down. So many people are meeting on Zoom, and I don't really like it." And she had all these reasons why she didn't like it. And whether you have children, whether you're a teenager, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, we all know that on some level, at least in the past, when content creation was somewhat restricted, we saw this polished view. Maybe you grew up in the times of Hollywood and you saw the actors and actresses, and you grew up in the time of the top hat and the feather and stuff like this. Or maybe you grew up in the time of Madonna and you saw the Material Girl. And when Facebook came out, there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, social media is really horrible for people because it gives a inauthentic view of what life is. People are only posting their beautiful French cuisine. No one's posting their hot dog." However, might it be possible that the answer to the social media inadequacies is more creators? And let me try to flesh this out a little bit. There's a concept there's this book I read called, it speaks of the term wabi-sabi. And this is this Japanese term for coaxing the beauty out of the ugly. And an example is like a really old antique pot has this giant crack in it, but that's what makes it beautiful. It's not the pristine craftsmanship, which is great, but it's the fact that somewhere along the line, this beautiful, magnificent piece of pottery was dropped somewhere. And that story behind it, that was when Uncle Ronnie was coming down the stairs. And let me tell you what Grandma did. Grandma came over and pinched his butt, and he slipped and fell. It was the funniest I've ever seen in my life. But it's the story. It's the coaxing. What is this scar right here? So maybe social media is moving away, and now you can see a guy riding a motorcycle naked, or you can see a girl that's 7 reciting a poem that brings tears to your eyes, and you're like, "Oh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Let me watch it again." And maybe the answer to the polished idea of what life can be is a million more people showing you what life really is. And I think that that's kind of what your product is doing. It's providing that platform for people to understand on some level we're all creators, whether you're putting it out there or whether you're going to work, whether you're making breakfast or whether you're mowing your yard. Like, you're creating something. And if you begin to see yourself that way, you change the way you model reality, right? What do you think about that? Is it possible that the answer to the polished world of Hollywood could be more creators showing what life is?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Part of it, I would say, is I understand, the kind of, there is a pull to polish. There is an absolute pull to polish. Kind of, we all have it. When I'm producing something, I create it. So it's so strange because, like, I'm like going off on a slight tangent, but like,
Please.
when I create something, some of my favorite stuff that I've ever made, probably my favorite stuff that I've ever made, was a piece of art or recording or whatever, the music, whatever the case was. It was something that I had no concept of, and I just kind of made it in like 20 minutes and was done with it, and I just never touched it again. I just did it, was like, that's pretty cool, and then I was done with it. A lot of the art that I made that I have hanging in my house, it was that. I just made it randomly. I was bored for a second and I just made it. It was, unpolished. But there's a pull to polish, other times if I have more time on my hands. Like I made a video last week. I recorded it on Tuesday and it took me 5-6 days to edit that thing. I was on the plane for 10 hours and just going it over and over and over again. Like, oh, change this graphic. I don't really like that. What is this? And by the end, I was like, yeah, this is all right. Heavily polished, loads of animations and transitions and background music and all these things. And in the end, I was like, it's fine. So I understand people's pull to polish. And at the same time, I'm a lover of magazines. I absolutely love magazines. I've loved magazines my entire life. Just the photography and all of the work that goes into it and all the different things they have to do for lighting to get the moment exactly right. They take 500 photographs of someone jumping in the air to get that exact perfect moment when the one hair is just perfectly resting on the eyebrow and like all of these things. So it's like there is a place for that. There's absolutely a place for that because polish, as good as things not being polished is, I think there's a balance, right? Polish content is very important because it gives you something to aspire to.
I like it.
I think you can't really live a fulfilling life if you're not aspiring, if you're not trying to move forward, if you don't see a North Star that you're walking in the desert towards. If the North Star isn't there, then you're just walking in the desert. You're not heading anywhere. And there's a place for unpolished content. That unpolished content, I think, it helps you build a community. I don't think you can build a community around unpolished I don't think you can build a community around polished content. You can only build a community around unpolished content because it's real. People can relate to it. It's what makes people feel comfortable with who they are. You should aspire to be more. I think everyone should aspire to be more, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't feel happy and secure with where you are right now and who you are right now. And in terms of media, you're only going to get that from people being real and not being polished. So yeah, I think you need a balance.
Okay, what do you think is the relationship between authenticity and polished?
I think that's a hard question.
It is.
I think that's a very hard question to answer because it really depends. It really depends on the person, kind of in how they view themselves. I think the conversation around looking at certain creators, for instance, like if we just take a look at like one platform, if we look at creators on Instagram, for instance, there are a lot of people doing great things. There are a lot of creators that they get attacked because people don't think they're being authentic. It's like you're too polished, you're not being authentic, you're not being real. And again, like, I'm the type of person I like to see all sides of the story. And I think, I don't want to psychologically diagnose anyone, but I think a lot of times that comes from, if I speak personally, I have felt that myself, when I've looked at certain creators that I feel are too polished and are not being authentic. And a lot of the times that comes from an insecurity within myself. As I was saying, in order for you to feel comfortable in yourself, you need to see something that's kind of real, something that has mistakes in it. When you look in the mirror, your face isn't completely perfect without any lines or blemishes or whatever. So if you see that in a person, you're like, well, that's not like what I see in the mirror when I look at myself. Therefore, this person is not being authentic. But that person is being authentic to what they want to be.
Right.
Like you have to, when you look at other people being creators, you can't look at it through your lens.
Right.
You have to look at every piece of, media and creation through the lens of the person that made it and see things through their eyes. Where are they coming from? What's their story? What story are they trying to tell? Why are they trying to tell that story? And don't try to force yourself on the story. If it's a story that you don't want to hear, then that's completely fine, and that's not for you. But I think everyone is being authentic. I don't think there is a way to be inauthentic. I don't think our brains allow us to be inauthentic, even when we're escaping our insecurities. We're still being authentic in that.
Yeah, I admire that point of view. I think it speaks volumes of someone who is probably sat alone for long periods of time, wondering why shit is the way it is, man. I love that, dude. You know what I mean? Like, that's volumes right there. Like, well, what about the way they think? They're probably looking at it like that. Jesus Christ.
I mean, how do you feel? When you're creating content? You're a very positive person. I think you have a great message.
Thank you.
How do you feel? Are there times where you feel you struggle with authenticity? After you've created something, do you kind of look back and feel like, was I being my true self or not? Do you ever struggle with that?
Yeah, I do. And I would echo your sentiments about there not being a true inauthentic person from the point of view of another person. Like, who am I to say you're not honest? I don't know what you're thinking. Like, maybe you wanted that piece. Like, I don't know. But when you look at yourself, I think you have the ability to understand if you gave it, if you're being truly authentic. I heard a story one time that was along the lines of, I think it was John Wooden. He wrote this book and told this story about winning and losing in life. And he would get his kids together on the basketball court and say something along the lines of, at the end of the game, only you will truly know whether you won or lost out there. And it won't be based on the points on the board. Because you can go out there and you can crush the other team and you can have more points on the board and still lose the game. Or you could go out there and you could lose the game but get more out of yourself. But if you go out there and you get more points on the board and you sucked at it, well, you're kind of a loser because you didn't do your best, man. You could have done better. The points don't matter because someone else could have had a good game and you suck. That doesn't matter. And on the flip side, if you go out there and you give everything that you have and the other team wins, well, you get to walk away the winner because you got more out of yourself. And I think that comes down whether you're playing sports or whether you're in a relationship or whether you're creating something. If like, God damn it, I should have put the color yellow in. You know why I didn't do it? Because my dog was barking, the kid, and I was like, I'll just leave it like that. That's fine. But now it bothers me every time I look at it. And someone else like, I think it looks good. And you're like, no, it's not. Like, like that in some level is the inauthenticity. Or you're like, I think this will get more views, and it gets back to the first part of our conversation where, like, if you're creating something for anything other than a true expression of what you're trying to create, like if you're trying to breathe life into something, that's probably going to foster authenticity. If you're doing something because you have to, or you're under a contract, hopefully you can breathe life into it in the way a great sculptor could bring to life a piece of marble that has something beautiful in it. But if you're just creating for comments, if you're creating for views, if you're creating for likes, it's easier to be inauthentic. And that's just speaking for myself, because I find myself in that trap sometimes. Like, how come this one didn't get as much? And I'm like, okay, who cares? Who cares why I didn't get that much? It's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for this. And then it's like, everything's kind of lifted off of me. And I feel like my creative spirit gets kind of clamped down when it's shoved into a corner and do this now. You know what I mean? So I guess that's the way I look at inauthentic behavior and authentic behavior. And sometimes the way I speak, if I'm pulling my punches a little bit and I'm not being me, I'm like, I can get way more out of this interview, but I'm too scared to ask this person a question. And that's not fair to them. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to the audience. I should just try to be me. And so on some level, I think we all battle with this idea of authenticity. And I'm glad that we do, because I think it makes us better. I think that it challenges us to create better things. And but I've been hearing that term quite a bit, authenticity. So I think it's a beautiful term, and more people should be figuring out what that word means to them, right? It's like, it's up to them to define that. Is that a good answer?
Yeah, Yeah,
Okay, go.
absolutely. I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, but piggybacking off of that, like I think as well, you everything is kind of an endless. I don't want to use the word game, but I can't think of another word.
Sure.
It's like
Yeah.
everything is endless in life. Like I think, when we were talking about goals, one reason I don't like goals is because honestly, you never get there.
Yeah. It's true.
Like, and if you did make a goal that you reached, I don't think it's probably a good goal.
Right.
You didn't go far enough. Like you have to choose. So like authenticity, no one's ever going to be authentic in their own eyes
Right.
or
Right.
in the eyes of another person.
Right.
Like when you look in the mirror, you're always going to feel like you should be something more. You should be a little bit more real to yourself. Other people are going to think you should be a little bit more real along their lines about how they have defined the game. And that's good. I think that's good, is what keeps things fresh, every day. I'm the type of person that I wear kind of the same thing all the time. I like to pick a uniform and then I kind of rock with it, kind of like a cartoon character. But that allows me to struggle with authenticity, because it's like, well, is this authentic? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Well, maybe I need to find a new way to be authentic. If I can't do it in my dress, maybe I need to find a new form of authenticity. Maybe I have to do it with my language.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to do it with my actions. Maybe I need to do it the way I show up in a relationship. Maybe I need to show my authenticity and how I'm compassionate to another person. There's so many different layers of authenticity. So yeah, like you're never going to feel completely authentic. You're always going to feel a little bit inauthentic, but you shouldn't see that as a negative. You should see that as a positive and as a sign that there's more room to grow and life isn't over. There's a lot more lane left on this highway.
I love that analogy. And I want to add to it. I want to say, if you find yourself creating stuff and you bump up against the word authenticity, congratulations. Whether it's someone saying you're inauthentic or someone says that's not, hey, welcome, man. Come here, let me give you a hug, man. You're here with us. You know what I mean? Like, you're there. Like, you see that sign. Oh, I got what they're talking about, man. I made it. On some level, like, you made it right there. When you start thinking at that level, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Now turn around and help the next person up. Help them understand what that is, right? Now we're back to this idea of collabing and stuff like that. But not a whole lot of people thoroughly understand what the creator economy is. Maybe you could give us your definition of it, and where do you see the creator economy in looking forward? Like, what does that look like to you?
The creator economy, how would I describe it? I mean, I think the creator economy definitely is nothing new. I think it's kind of come back around. Okay. I think to some degree, like the creator economy has always existed. Like, what did humanity do in the beginning? There were no jobs. You had to create, you had to figure something out. You think of like the, hundreds, thousands of years ago, the idea of the bazaar, people going into the center of town, and every single person in the town had a stall. And it was like, okay, well, that person, they're selling prunes. Well, I'm not going to sell prunes. I think I have some wood in the back of my house. I'm going to whittle that into like little sculptures of something, into little elephants. And maybe that will be my thing. And that's what I'll create. And I'll bring it to the bazaar and I'll see if anyone likes it. And if no one likes it, well, then maybe next week I'll whittle it into monkeys, and I'll see if people like that. You never know. So I think that's the kind of original creator economy. And then, as society changed, we had jobs. And that's kind of the structure of how people saw the world. I think there was a kind of collapse or a concentration of resources into kind of centralized hands, for good and for bad. I think there's two sides of it, where there is a lot of positive and there is some negative to that. And for that, when you get that kind of accumulation of capital and resources into centralized hands, well, what do humans do? What do all animals do? they flock to wherever the resources are, and those resources were in companies and corporations and certain modes of working. So there wasn't a lot of creatorness. There wasn't a lot of need for creators, I think, during the Industrial Revolution, and, up to like the 1950s, 1960s, there wasn't a lot of need for it because humanity had other problems that they needed to worry about. And being a creator was quite challenging. But now, with the birth of the internet, and how, a high-speed internet and access to platforms like Facebook and YouTube and TikTok and, the ease of selling products, I think Shopify and Amazon, Amazon is vilified this to a big degree, but like there are so many people who have created their business. Like they would have never gone out on their own and created products to sell on their own if it wasn't for the existence of a platform like that allowed people to be like, okay, well, I'm going to set up an Instagram account, to show pictures of the artwork that I'm making. And then I'm going to set up a free Shopify account to, sell the products. And then I'm going to set up a StreamYard account and I'm going to live stream to multiple platforms so that more and more people can see the thing that I'm making. So like with all of these platforms getting into more and more people's hands around the world, well, what happens when you give humans tools? Well, they use those tools and they find ways to create, so that's what I think the creator economy is. I think it's everything. I think we put a lot of emphasis on the kind of entertainment and kind of media portion of the creator economy, because that's kind of what the majority of what we see. But the creator economy is everything, like this ring. I got it from this couple that started a store and started making these rings by hand. I think it's in Lake Tahoe. Small store. I would have never seen it. I would have never been there. Would have never heard about it. But I learned about it through the creator economy, and I was able to, find it and like it and buy it. And so the creator economy, I think, is everywhere. In terms of the future of the creator economy, I don't know. I think it's so hard to guess. I think it's going to be more of the same, not in a sense of like repetitiveness. I think it's going to be more of the same in terms of it's going to continue to grow. I think the great thing about the creator economy is that we have no idea what it's going to be. As more people enter, it changes. There's this concept of metas, where it's like, what is the current meta of the time? And I think the meta keeps changing, and as more people enter, the meta will change. And I'm very excited. One thing I'm extremely excited about is for kind of developing economies and other countries that we don't get to hear about what they're doing so much, for them to take control of the narratives a bit and to get their voice heard, because they're doing amazing things, like what creators are doing in Africa, what they're doing in fashion, in technology, in entertainment, across the board, what they're doing with different forms of governing structures. There's so much creativity out there, and that's going to change the creator economy, and we're going to see things that we never thought of before, and that's going to give more people opportunities. That's going to spread the wealth. It's going to allow more people to collaborate. So I'm excited for the future of the creator economy.
Yeah, you should be. When I was little, it's probably dating myself, but the way in which you saw the world from a classroom was like through like a National Geographic magazine. Like, look at this picture. Look, this girl's got beautiful eyes, and but now my daughter will have the opportunity to have someone maybe from Kenya come on her podcast, and she can, this is what I'm doing over here, is what I'm doing over here, and we break away it was Francis Fukuyama that wrote this thing, The End of History. It was all wrong, but there is an end of history that was written and given to us. And in some ways, I think what the creator economy is, the product like StreamYard is doing, and other people in the space are doing, is that they are beginning to give us a lens into a new dimension of reality. Like if you can, I don't need my great grandfather's World War II story to know what happened in Europe. I can talk to somebody over there. And before you had to go over there, you had to have a lot of money to get on a plane to go there, and you might only catch a slice of it now, but now you can see, hey, I kind of like this person over there. I like what they're doing. What are they talking about? And you get to learn in a way in which you've never learned before. I think that what is going, I think that this seed of new learning will in some ways produce a tasty fruit that we've never had before. Like, wow, that was delicious. Like it's going to be ways to collaborate with people you didn't even know were alive and have an ancestry and a culture and an understanding of the world that you never had. In some ways, it's almost like our brain connecting itself on some level. Like, hey, this moves my arm, and hey, I didn't know that did that. It's so exciting. It's the first time we're coming together, man. It's real, and I hope people see that. Do you think people are seeing that, like what's going on as a coming together?
I think so to some degree. One thing that I've noticed both kind of like within the creator economy and just kind of in humanity in general, like everything that I see kind of on the news and, talking to people, traveling around, talking to different people, like people respond to incentives.
Yes.
Like if I put you in a room all by yourself with nothing in it, you're going to behave a certain way. But if I put 10 other people in that room and I start playing, some like techno music, you're going to behave a different way. Now, if I put 2 of you in the room and I put a chainsaw in the middle of there and I starved you, you're going to behave a different way. So like, I think people behave in different ways depending on what the situation is. So what I've kind of seen is, because the world is so big and there are so many different situations that people are in, certain people see the value and other people don't, because it's not really in their incentive to kind of see it that way and to take part in things that way. And I think for a large part, a lot of people won't feel the need to kind of hear other people's stories and to take other people seriously and to collaborate with other people until they're forced to, I think, or until they're inspired to. I think that's another thing. I think that's one thing that we're missing so heavily is inspiration, is people having, I forget who said it the other week, but they were like, one thing that we're missing kind of in the kind of pantheon of kind of loud voices is, if someone asked you, like, who is, of all the like mega popular people that most people know about, who is the person that every time they speak, they talk about hope and they talk about, positive, how things are going to be positive and about how people are going to come together. I don't think there's a lot of voices kind of out there doing that. And that's why I think, things like what you're doing and what other creators are doing is kind of incredibly powerful, because people aren't going to come around until they're shown that it's possible, that it's real, that there are other people doing it. Why should I collaborate if no one else is? Well, I got to show you that other people are collaborating. Me and you, we are here. You and other people, me and other people, we're collaborating. We're doing it. We're getting a lot of benefit. Everyone is benefiting. So now people are like, okay, that's curious. Like, I was closed off before, but I kind of see what the value proposition is. And I think that's part of the thing with collab. A big part of our job is, we're a tool. We're a tool to help people collaborate, but the other goal for us is to inspire people to collaborate, people that don't think oh, it's not worth it for me to kind of take the time. How long does it take to, come on here and have a great conversation with another person on the opposite side of the world? 30 minutes, an hour, in our conversation, I'm going to carry this with me.
Me too.
For the rest of the day, for the rest of the week, a year from now, I'm probably going to think about this conversation that we've had, and that's powerful. And the more we kind of get that out there, the more people I think will come around to this and to many other positive things.
Yeah, I once heard someone say people change two ways. One is through inspiration, and one is through desperation.
And, wow, that's good.
Yeah,
that is good.
Yeah, unfortunately, desperation tends to be the one that most people wait for. And maybe you have to become desperate before you can get inspired. Maybe it's a hand holding relationship on some level. But when I get to collab with people, yourself or other podcasts out there, or get to talk to different people in the world, you really begin to understand how powerful a conversation is. You can change. Like, this conversation changes the whole way my day is going. It changes the way I'm going to interact with my daughter. It's probably going to change what I'm going to have for lunch. It changes the conversation. And we're doing that from across the pond, from across the ocean. And those small changes, it's like the pebble in the pond. You throw that pebble in the pond and it radiates outward. So you can, if you're willing to take a chance and collaborate in something as simple as a conversation, you can change the world on some level. You may not be changing the leaders out there, but you can influence somebody in a way. And I'm hopeful that collab and other things like this, they begin to change the nature of what people think an influencer is. Because an influencer is far greater than someone that gets you to like yellow shoes. An influencer is someone who gets to go, hey, I like the way you think. Can you explain that to me? And then you influence one another to live a better life with your language. That is influence. That is making change. And that is something every one of us can do if we're willing to have the courage to go out there and try to do it. A smile, a little eyebrow flash, tilting your head one way. You know what I mean? Like, all these things can change the world around you, and they're so simple. And the tools you're providing for that are there. I got this cool little list of like potential imaginative things, and I'm going to throw them out there. And I was hopeful if you could just say what you think about them. Can we go for that?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Okay. Techno-sensory artistry, exploring digital mediums that go beyond visuals and sound, allowing audiences to experience art through the senses of touch, smell, and taste.
I love it. I think it's great. I don't know if you've heard of this thing that they've opened recently called the Sphere. It's in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So it's this like massive dome. For anyone that doesn't know, it's this massive dome, huge, absolutely enormous dome. It's covered in LED panels, right? So it's a massive screen. The whole exterior is a massive screen, and the interior as well is lined with LED panels, LCD panels. I was saying LED, LCD panels. It's a massive screen on the inside as well. And they did their first kind of opening show, I think it was last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and they had U2 perform. So you're kind of sitting in this theater. Usually you go to a concert, there's a stadium, everyone's sitting around, then you're kind of staring at the performer. But in this situation, you're sitting inside of this theater, but the show is all around you. Like, yeah, U2 is performing down there on a stage, but there are like visuals happening. I mean, it is insane. It's absolutely insane. It was started by one of the co-founders is the son of the person who started Madison Square Garden in New York. And his plan is to open up 7 or 8 of these spheres all around the world. He wants them in every major city and to keep expanding and developing the technology more and more. Because what he saw was people are not going to the movie theater anymore. Why should I go and lug my butt all the way to this building to stare at a screen when I can stare at a screen at home? So people are like, oh, nobody wants to go out anymore. But that's not true. What he saw was that people do want to go out, but they want a full-on experience. They don't want to stare at a screen. They want to they want to see the sights all around them, like going out into, a field at night and seeing the stars all around you. They want to feel the wind, so in the sphere they have like wind that comes through, and like it goes with the music, and they want to do like vibrations, and like as they develop the technology, they'll probably incorporate things like scent and other things, and you're with loads of other people, so that it's community. So it's multi-sensory, but you need the technology, right? You need the technology kind of all around you. So I think it's great. I think it's a great idea.
That's fascinating. I've seen pictures of it, and it reminds me of reading some old textbooks where when people first went to the movies and they first had this moving picture, they saw this train coming, and the whole audience got up and like ran away because they thought the train's gonna come right to the screen at them. And we laugh at that, but like, why wouldn't you think that? I think you've never seen that before. And in some ways it's exciting. Like maybe the sphere presents us with this novelty that we haven't had in so long. And like when it's novel, you're living. And thanks, Glenn. Okay, so digital echo chambers of emotion. How digital media combined with AI creates personalized emotional feedback loops, revolutionizing how we experience and express feelings.
Echo chambers of emotion. I think it's good. I can see it in two ways. I can see that in two ways. I think to some degree you already have it.
Okay.
Right? Like whatever you're feeling, you tend to feel for an extended period of time. When people talk about filter bubbles, a lot of what's really happening is that your emotion dictates how you interact with things on the internet. And the algorithms learn to show you things based on how you interact with things on the internet, right? So like the algorithms, what they're doing is they're responding to your emotion. If I am angry, or let's say, I'm working at a job and I'm concerned. I have a lot of anxiety for whatever reason. Maybe I'm have anxiety about the economy. Like recently, me and my partner were thinking about, buying a house, and I have anxiety around that. So I've kind of been sucked down into a bit of digital echo chamber of, anxiety about the economy and kind of everything that I've seen. And there's a whole kind of echo chamber around that, but if my emotion changes, like it has this week, my emotion has absolutely changed. And I've completely kind of changed over the past 3 days of how I'm interacting with certain things and what I'm searching for and what I'm looking at. And now I'm in a completely different echo chamber of emotion. Right now I'm surrounded by an echo chamber of creativity and hopefulness and things like that. So I think that there's a definite positive, but there's also, the potential negative that people get trapped because they think that that's all that exists. So as long as you walk into that echo chamber knowing that there's a door for you to walk out of, I think it's fine, because then you can sit with it and you can learn about it and you can respond to it better the next time.
Yeah, I love it. Just on a related side note, do you see your environment as a container?
In what way? In what way do you mean?
In that, like I speak to a lot of people in the world of well-being, and sometimes they look at, you're in this container when you go to get help, like you're in this medical container, or sometimes you're in this work container, but they add the word container. And as I began pondering that and thinking about that, I'm like, that's a pretty good word, because on some level, when you're around somebody, be it an echo chamber as sort of a container, like you are subject to the thoughts and feelings of the people in this space. So like these spaces can be containers. I wonder if you've ever given that any thought.
Yeah. I could give an example from today. So like, because I'm, here in London, I don't live in London. I don't work in London. I had to rent space for my team to work together. So we rented a space in a WeWork here in Shoreditch, and it's a container. It is absolutely a container. While we were leaving today, we're in the elevator going downstairs, and I was like, man, I love this building. I don't know what, like, I feel I'm a relatively creative person.
Sure.
And I try to keep that energy with me. But like, man, being in that building with all of those different people, walking past, 20 different people to, fill up my coffee cup, and each one of those 20 different people, they're all working on different companies that are solving different problems in the world. That's a completely different container than a, a completely different space, and how you're
Yeah.
going to respond and how you're going to feel, the ideas you're going to come up with. Like the ideas my team came up with today, I was journaling before we met, and I was like, I wrote down, like, I am impressed, beyond impressed with what my team was able to come up with, because we were in that container. I don't think we would have been able to do it. Honestly, we're all very talented, but I think you need to find the right container to achieve certain goals. I think that's very important.
Yeah, me too. I like my containers to have lots of psychedelics in them. I think that's a pretty awesome
absolutely.
container.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Maybe I can get, like, I've been a big fan of finding ways to express myself in heightened states of awareness. And I think that there's something that you can really get in touch with at these heightened states. For me, I've been a big fan of LSD and magic mushrooms and, cannabis at times, but more of the magic mushrooms. And I found that it helps me see the world in a third person point of view, which is great for trauma. Like if you get into an event that is overwhelming and you could step outside of it for a minute, like, oh, it's not my fault. Oh, that person was an asshole. I get it. It was me too. But maybe you could speak to the idea of how heightened states of awareness have a relationship to creativity, in your opinion.
Yeah, I think you can't be creative unless you're aware of more things, right? Like, when I create, something I notice, and this is something that I've seen a lot of people push, and I think to some degree it's kind of helpful. I think creativity, someone wrote art is a sport, which was quite interesting. What they meant was that when you think of a sport, when you think of someone who's an athlete, LeBron James, playing basketball, or Messi playing football, they can't perform unless they're performing every day, right? They got to go to the gym, they got to work out, they got to practice, all those things. But at the same time, you can't learn. If Messi, one thing that makes a great athlete is that they don't just show up to the gym and run the same drills over and over. They will get better at those drills. But what happens is that their opponents learn the drills that athlete is very good at. So the other part of being a great athlete is watching videos of what other people are doing, opening your awareness, and then using that to expand what you're doing. It's like, oh, okay, like they're doing like that. Okay, how can I change my drill slightly to kind of incorporate what these other two people are doing? And that kind of helps you grow. So I think awareness, creativity, I don't think you could be creative without being aware of more things. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah. I'm always reminded of the language when people talk about, ever since a kid, I remember being young and like, oh, we're going to get high. Well, what happens when you get high? You have a different perspective. Like you're looking down at things. People talk about going on a trip. Well, in a lot of ways, a psychedelic journey is a trip. Like you're seeing a different landscape, even though maybe you're noticing something for the first time. And anybody who's been fortunate enough to travel, when you go somewhere else, like everything is anew. You're like, oh, that's what their fire hydrant looks like. That's weird. What is that over here? That's a stall for the bathroom right there. Like what? They go on a boat under that bridge? That's a small bridge. How come people are not so fat over here? Like you just see everything is new. And sometimes on a psychedelic journey or on a different diet, breath work, there's all these ways we can find in order to see things differently. They really create the ability for us to see something that we see every day in a new way. And I think that is a great jump off point for creativity, because when you can see something mundane as something unique, then now you almost have not only you almost have it's almost a necessity that you show it to somebody else. Like, hey, look at this thing. And they're like, I've seen it a million times. You have, but have you seen this? You know, that's creativity, right? Like, and that simple shift in focus can fundamentally change someone's point of view of something. I think that's one reason why art is so important. It gives us that ability to shift perspective. Is that, maybe let's talk a little bit more about your ideas about art. Like, who are some of your greatest influences?
For art, I think my greatest influence is so cliche, but Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol is probably one of my greatest influences. And of course, Duchamp. Duchamp is amazing. Like putting a signature on a toilet and calling it art. I think he questioned everything. You know, I like artists. I like the type of artists where a lot of people look at them and they're like, that's not art. Because they change the conversation.
Okay.
You know, like, what is art? You know, Duchamp looking at, because Duchamp was a great artist. He was extremely talented. You know, people look back and they think about the toilet, but he was an amazingly skilled painter. You know, he had a lot of technical abilities, but he was able to challenge things. He's like, yes, I can do this, and this is traditional. And if anyone looked at it and I pointed at it, they would say, yes, that is art. But I just put my signature on the toilet. Why isn't that art? Like, why can't that be art? So I think that's really a lot of my influences come from those types of artists. One artist I also like that a lot of people don't like. He's done some questionable things, but like Jeff Koons. I've always found his work very interesting because he came to art. He was an investment banker.
Okay.
You know, he was working on Wall Street and he saw the kind of financial thing of art. And, you know, to some degree, of course, he got into art to make money. But I got to talk to him once and he saw art in a much more complex way. Like the interplay of, there was an artwork and how art is monetized. Like how the language of money and the language of art came together to form a conversation. There was a whole questioning around that. So yeah, I think those are there's a small collection, I think, of my top kind of inspirations.
Okay, so when I think about the balloon dog, that was his piece, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it like one of the reasons why I think that's so popular is that people can see themselves in that artwork. Like they look down and they see this reflection. It's all smooth and like there's no real jagged edges. And like I can see the beauty of it in a way. But in my opinion, and I'm just a podcaster, in some ways it's cheating to me. Like you're just getting people to like look at themselves. And I guess maybe that's why it's so awesome, you know, but for me, it brings up like this little bit of like, I see what you're doing here, but maybe that's just me. Like maybe you can speak to what you see in maybe that sculpture and like the toilet. Are these messages that you like? What are some of the messages in the art that resonate with you from some of their pieces?
So the balloon dog there's a concept that's quite popular. There's a thing in copyright law.
Okay.
That's if you are able to change 40% of a piece of work, and that 40% is somewhat subjective. But like if I take Mickey Mouse, you know, there's a copyright on Mickey Mouse. I can't do anything with Mickey Mouse. But if I'm able to change it 40%, then I'm able to use it. It's fair use. I can say that this version of this slightly modified version of Mickey Mouse is mine. Now, one powerful thing about that is that you can't change if you show someone something that has absolutely no relation to anything they've ever seen. They're not going to respond well to it because there's no frame of reference.
Right.
Like, that's a big thing with building products. If you build a product, well, I need to be able to message it to you in a way that you're going to be able to understand.
Yeah.
You know, like this is what the product is for. So like with art, it's kind of the same way. I think you have someone like Jeff Koons, or you take like Damien Hirst with spots. Everyone has seen a circle.
Right.
But if you take a whole bunch of circles and you put them all together and you paint them all different colors and different combinations, and you have all those different combinations on a massive wall, like a 20-foot wall with all of these different circles. Everyone has seen circles, everyone has seen colors, everyone has seen circles of different colors. But if you kind of do it in that way, it completely changes your perspective, and it kind of forces you to see things in a different way. With
Right.
Trump and the toilet, everyone has seen the toilet. Everyone's seen a urinal. We all know what it looks like. But if I take it off the wall and I put it on a table and I put it in the middle of an art gallery, there's another artist I like quite a bit who passed away recently, Virgil Abloh. And he said that the most important part of art is not the art itself, but the environment around the artwork, right? Like, I don't know if you've ever been to the Louvre, but if the Mona Lisa, everyone knows kind of what the Mona Lisa is and what it looks like. If you go to the room where the Mona Lisa is, it's, first of all, the Mona Lisa is a lot smaller than you think. But it's in this room. It's quite small. But in the room, there are massive, right across the wall, on the opposite wall of the Mona Lisa, there is a 20-foot tall painting. It's 20 foot by like 40 foot. It's a massive, massive painting. But it's out there. It's in the open. It's on the wall. It has that very large painting has a gloss on it, to protect the paint. But the Mona Lisa, it's set back, so you can't get very close to it. It's like shielded by, bulletproof, fireproof, bomb-proof glass. So it creates a certain environment. So how you look at it is different from how you're going to look at something else. So you look at the balloon dog. Everyone has seen a balloon dog. Clowns make it at birthday parties. And it's made of, rubber. It's made of a balloon. But what if I made it out of metal and I made it 30 feet tall and I put it in a building? Then what are you going to think about it? Well, now I can't look at it the way I look at a balloon dog at a kid's party. I have to look at it completely differently. Completely changes my frame of reference. So that's kind of what I like about art, like certain types of art. It has to be big, bold, but it has to have that kind of just 40% change where it's recognizable, but it's different enough that it forces you to see what you thought you knew differently.
Thank you for that. It gives me a different perspective, man. And I appreciate, now I got some people to look into, man. That's super cool. There's another aspect of art that I have encountered. I got to go and see the here in Hawaii, and I think it's a traveling event. They have like Starry Night. They have like a Van Gogh museum, but they shoot it onto the wall now. And in some ways you get to walk and see these paintings. It's pretty cool to go and like get to see it. And I really like the way in which it seems that as we're moving forward into the multimedia space, art is transforming with us. Like in some ways, we're getting to be part of the artwork in a little bit. It's all, what it's like? It's almost like a real life choose your own adventure book. Like you get to walk through there. You know what I mean? You're like, I think I'm going to go this way. We're actually getting to be the characters in the novel now. Like, and in some ways, that's what collab is in a way, right? Like I think that you're the perfect person to be leading this place, man. Because I can see that. I can see the love of the artwork, and I can see the way in which the user interface is a window in which I can collaborate with another artist. But maybe there's other ways. Is there other ways we can be moving forward in this world of art and collaboration?
Man, so many ways. Anyway, any way that you could work with another person, I think you should take. the opportunity, you know, whether it's, you know, being on another person's show like this, or helping someone out, you know, with something that they're working on. I think everyone is collaborating to some degree. I think you should find any way. I think first off, you know, I think the first off thing I would say for a lot of people is that everyone is collaborating.
Yeah.
You know, you should look at kind of what you're doing in the world, what you're currently working on, whatever job that it is, and you should have a deep respect for the people that you impact every day and how you impact them, because that's a form of collaboration. You know, whether you're, you know, Amazon delivery driver delivering packages, that's a form of collaboration. You're collaborating with, you know, a seller, you know, 10 countries away, and you're collaborating with the person that needs the package delivered to them. I think there's so many different ways to collaborate, and people should find every opportunity as possible, because at least from my perspective, what else is there? You know, I don't see my purpose on this planet to be here for myself and to make myself happy and to do things for myself. If I'm not helping someone else every single day do something, I don't really know what I don't really know how I spent the day. You know, so I think you should find as many opportunities to collaborate as possible, and I think having conversations is an important one, because so many people benefit from it.
Yeah, and I do too. I think that we're moving into a world that's much more meaningful, and I love that. Like, I really hope people. I think it's missing in a lot of people's life. I know it's missing in mine at times, and I'm constantly searching for it. But this idea of meaning, and it comes from getting to talk to people that you didn't even know are super awesome, and they're all around us, and they're mirrors of you, and they bring out everything. And so, Charles, this exceeded my expectations today. This is really, really cool, man. And I really appreciate the time and getting to learn and talk and make a new friend and see things differently. And you know what?
Same.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to cover before we start winding?
Everyone go to streamyard.com/collab, go sign up, go find interesting people, be on someone's show, start a show yourself, start putting yourself out there. You know, one thing I tell everyone is that if you are a person on this earth and you have lived even an hour, you have something to share. You have a story that should be told. You have something to say that can inspire someone that was in your shoes a day ago, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. Tell your story to anyone that will listen. You are of value, no matter who you are, and people will love you. You are loved. So get out there and start collaborating with people.
Yeah, and I used, you know, what I really like about StreamYard. There's a lot of things I like about it, but I love the idea of streaming. And I think it harkens back to this idea of authenticity. I think it harkens back to this idea of artistry. And I think it's something that AI is going to help us be able to do in a way. And it helps people see that these are all tools around us. And, and it combines with the idea of the present moment. You know, yesterday was the past. Tomorrow's the future. Today's a gift. That's why they call it the present. And you can be in the present when you're streaming. You have an opportunity to talk to people and stream your ideas out there. So I think that streaming for people that are getting into multimedia is the next space race, because you're in the now, you're in the present, and you can communicate at the time. So Charles Ponti, everyone should go to StreamYard and check everything out. It's a great product of it. Is there any little teasers you can give us with what might be coming out on StreamYard soon?
There's so much. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, because so much is kept under wraps. But the product is getting better every single day. We have a lot of features coming out that's going to help make creating content, getting started, a lot easier. You know, that's been a big hurdle for a lot of people. There are many people that are, you know, easily motivated and they come up with loads of ideas, you know, but a lot of us struggle to come up with really good ideas. And even when we do come up with good ideas and actually create something, I think the post-production process, you know, editing videos and getting the audio right and chopping it up and, you know, repurposing it and getting it onto other platforms so that, you know, our message can grow and be seen by more people. I think that's a struggle that many people, that's something that a lot of people have been struggling with. So we have a lot of features coming out to help with the post-production flow and collab. as well. We have a lot of new innovative ways that we're going to be changing the product to help make it easier. Help make it easier for you to find the right people. You know, everyone is super dynamic. It has so many different interests. That's something that we're learning every day and improving the product and improving how we recommend people to each other and making it easier for you to reach out to that person, to have a valuable conversation. You know, you don't want to waste your time, so to have really valuable conversations as quickly as possible, and to get on screen, looking in another person's eyes and having that conversation as quickly as possible. So yeah, go sign up now. We're releasing stuff every single week, so you don't want to miss it.
Yeah, get out there, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening, if you're watching this, I use StreamYard all the time. It's a great product. It's changed my life in some ways. Streaming, becoming a podcaster, getting to meet fascinating people from around the world has changed my life, my relationships, and the way I see the world. So I would encourage everyone to get out there and start playing around and becoming the best version of yourself. So, well, Charles, hang on one momentarily afterwards. I want to talk to you briefly afterwards. But ladies and gentlemen, so stoked you guys are here today. And like I said in the beginning of the podcast, you may not know it yet, but there's a small miracle waiting to happen to you today. That's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. Aloha.
Yeah.